Did you see the training footage that was leaked?
Yeah, I saw a bit of it.
Wasabi looked good in that.
Yeah, he does look good. I was surprised when he fought Deji. I mean, me and you talked about it beforehand. Yeah. I thought that Deji, after doing the work, after suffering those two humiliating losses against Jake Paul and then Vinny Hacker, which was really bad. Yeah. That was really bad.
The Vinny one, to get beat up off a guy who looks that pretty is never
Deji should have just slaughtered him. So when he went to go fight Wasabi, I thought, right, he's lost the weight, he's put the work in, he's dedicated. For me, I wanted to see him go in there and just brutalise him, because I knew that Deji has the ability to do that, because when he fought Jake Paul, everyone expected him to get knocked out in the first round. No one gave him a shot. All the success that Deji had in that first fight was a surprise to everyone. So I was there in Manchester Arena, obviously you were there commentating, and the biggest moment of that night, if people remember, the biggest cheer, bigger than anything in the main event, was after the first round, when on the big screen they showed Jake Paul's face as he was sat in his corner full of blood with his nose busted. Everyone was like, oh my god, Deji is doing it. And the love that people had for Deji that night, like, that was, even though obviously KSI Logan Paul 1 was the main event and it was such a great fight, that felt like the people's moment there. And Deji, even though he lost, he won the respect of everyone.
He peaked at that moment. His career has never ever been that.
That was his best performance.
No, but his whole career peaked in that one moment. And I don't mean that in a nasty way. It's just the reality of it was, I think that he did better than he thought he was going to do, and everyone else, and therefore he got lazy. And
I agree.
I think he has that in him. Everyone's commented on it who knows him way better than I do. So this isn't me speaking. This is the people who know him best.
Yeah.
And obviously Vinny Hacker, he didn't even try. Clearly turned up overweight, out of shape.
And the team he had around him as well. I mean, you guys covered it on True News. They were a joke. They were a joke. They were a joke.
It was like, it was like lads abroad, but just like happened to be doing a boxing match while they were there. Like, it was as if the holiday had been booked and went, should we just, while we're at it, we'll do a fight.
There was a trip, And
then when Deji's girlfriend got in, and she was like coming down the road.
Oh my god.
Deji's wearing the Mai Tais. The whole thing, the more I think about it, then he took the knee in the middle of the fight.
I can't remember who said it, but recently someone said the game plan was obviously in that fight, we're going to take him out in the first round. So as soon as the first round finished, Deji's like, right, what do I do now? And his team are like, we've got no plan. They didn't expect to get to that point.
Yeah. Look, there's no way he fought Jake Paul and didn't learn how to jog and get in shape. So he knew what he had to do. He just didn't do it.
Yeah.
The Wasabi one, he was better in terms of his shape. There's this kid who's been training him called Daly, who clearly knows enough to get him in shape and to do the right thing. But mentally, he bottled it in that fight. As soon as he felt the punches of Alex Wasabi, he didn't want to know.
Do you think that's what it was? Like the fact that Alex Wasabi had like punch power?
So what ended up happening, from what I remember of that fight, and I didn't watch it that long ago, was at first he was trying to open up, but the minute he did, Wasabi was countering him. So every time he threw first, Wasabi being the bigger man and the quicker, longer, rangier guy, he fired back, and Deji ended up just not throwing. He gave up in that fight. And that's something that, as a trainer, this Daly lad is going to have to drill into him coming into the fight against Fousey, which I think is weirdly now the main event.
Definitely is the main
because
event.
Of what's happened to KSI's main event. But he gave up mentally in that fight. He was just trying to avoid getting hit. That was all he was doing.
Yeah.
And I think Daly now will know, if that is happening in round one, you need to scream at him and you need to slap him around and be like, bro, this is you're 4 losses in here if you lose this. 4 losses.
Yeah.
Which in a pro boxing record is bad. In YouTube boxing, it's laughable. Like,
it's everything.
You got to beat someone.
And it's on the biggest stage because people, I mean, often you get fighters that have 4 losses in a row, but no one's really heard of them or whoever.
Oh, he's main event, main event every time. Every fucking time. And he's very well known. And he's going in against Fousey, who is like, this is almost WWE levels of character. Like, Deji and Fousey are the most odd characters online.
Yeah.
They're up there.
Yeah,
they really
crazy,
are.
They're wild.
They're different.
And Fousey's very polarizing as well. I mean, even in his own personality. I mean,
he probably divides himself.
Like
Genuinely. There's 2 different versions of Fousey that we've seen in the last few years, right? Like, there's the overweight lunatic.
Yeah.
Then there's this new guy who's focused, who's shredded, who's all about his mental health and isn't
fully
bullshitting.
dedicated.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at like Fousey's history, I followed him for quite a few years. He's actually gone back and forth quite a few times. There's always times where he shreds down, gets into shape, he's super determined, and then he'll go off the rails a little bit. I'm not saying that Fousey's going to go back off the rails, but it's like
No, but you can imagine.
But the Fousey that's going to turn up on August 27th against Deji is the most dangerous version of Fousey, which is fully dedicated, shredded. You've seen some of his pad work and things like that, and that version of Fousey is not the one that got battered around by Slim. It's one that, in my opinion, is going to quite easily deal with Deji. And now going back to what you said before about Deji fighting and giving up against Wasabi, I think potentially that could have happened, but for me, what I saw against Wasabi was fear. I saw Deji being scared. I think those last few fights, it was gassing out, because in his last few fights he's gassed out, and that's one of the biggest reasons why he lost. If you remember how he fought against Jake and Vinny in those early rounds, it was hell to leather. He didn't care. He was using the fact that he actually has a bit of size to him. I think we even described him going into in that first round against Vinny Hacker as almost like a Derek Chisora type. He obviously didn't really have the technical ability, but he'll go in there, throw shots very similar to his brother, and if he catches you, he's going to hurt you.
I think it's 50-50. I think there was half scared of gassing and half getting punched. Did not enjoy that.
No.
And
obviously he underestimated Wasabi as well.
The worry with Fousey, where we're talking about his mental health thing, I'm just getting like that reminder of what Tyson Fury went through, and Fousey and Tyson Fury are very similar people in terms of, not in terms of boxing ability, but in terms of
is Fousey the next Tyson Fury?
Their mental challenges that they've had throughout their life.
Yeah.
They've both said things that the rest of the world listen to and go, that's a load of shit. You remember when he said Drake was going to turn up?
He did a whole event.
Like, it's very similar to some of the things Tyson Fury comes out with. And what I'm saying is, some people, they can become too focused, too obsessed for their own good, that there's burnout.
Yeah.
And that's the worry with Fousey, is after this night, I hope that he has a new goal, because people like him, they always need a goal. But back to the fight, the things I like about Fousey is when he fought Slim, and Slim was clearly the better boxer, clearly had the cardio, Fousey was out of shape, and jabbing Fousey's head off was Slim, but Fousey actually showed a lot of determination.
He showed a lot of heart.
So he didn't show what Deji showed in his last fight. Like, with the weaknesses and the mental side of it. Fousey was getting battered, and he was still going. And a lot of people were like making jokes, but personally, I had a lot of respect for him, because I thought, you know what, you're in front of all those people on a shit show event, no glory in it.
It was awful.
And you are getting battered, and you are trying.
It kept walking forward as well.
So that's the worry if you're coaching Deji coming into this, is you've got a guy who's mentally strong, who's battle tested, who can take a beating and keep coming forward, something Deji hasn't done yet, aside from the Jake Paul one, but that was years ago now, and eventually gave up in that fight as well. So whereas Fousey is mentally strong, but he's going to be in shape to go round after round after round. I do not believe, as great as people who are trying to train Deji, that the dedication can be on the same level from Deji. It will be much more improved, but I just feel like Fousey's an obsessive maniac.
He's completely focused. He's calling himself the wolf going into this fight. It's crazy. But it reminded me in a way when Fousey was just walking forward, taking those shots. A bit like Chris Matinho when he fought Sean O'Malley in the
Very
UFC.
much so, yeah.
Nobody know who Chris Matinho was before that. He was a step-in opponent, and Sean O'Malley was just teeing off on him for 3 rounds.
But he was a fucking zombie, this young kid, right?
Yeah, but he gained so much respect after that, and it's very similar to Fousey in a way, because now we know Fousey's got a chin.
So here's one confusing thing for me, right? Most people are backing Fousey to beat Deji because of what Deji's done lately, and because, let's not forget, Fousey did get in there against Alex Wasabi in a sparring match and beat the fuck out.
But that was also Wasabi not having any boxing.
Agreed.
Training.
But at this level, at this low level of YouTube boxing, when we have such minimal footage of people fighting, I mean, the main event, that Swarms fella.
We'll get onto that in a minute.
We have no footage of him, for example, right? So that is, at least we've got something of Fousey. I immediately thought, you've got to put Fousey in the main event against JJ. It was such a natural. It was like look, sorry, Deji, you've done your training, but the main event is what people are here for. They've already
sold tickets.
You've already let people down many times before. You've got to step aside. You'll have your chance. There's lots of Misfit Boxing coming up on DAZN. Shout out to them. They're going to do a great job. I'm excited to see what they can do. But Fousey or someone named who we've seen fight before would have been a great move, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just to put him in the main event and go sell the tickets.
Exactly. For so many reasons, obviously, because they've sold tickets, they've sold pay-per-views, everything like that. But JJ needs to make a statement to Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Because Jake Paul's just come off knocking out Tyron Woodley. He emphatically knocked out Tyron Woodley.
Slept them.
JJ needs to make a statement, and Fousey would have been a good person to make a statement against. Obviously, as you said, we've seen him fight.
I'm not saying Fousey is on the level of Tyron Woodley, but there's respect there within this community for Fousey that he's tough. He's taken many shots before, kept coming. He's actually, you can use him beating Wasabi as, hey, we're getting someone who's beaten Wasabi.
Yeah, because JJ's now saying Swarms would easily beat Wasabi. Yeah. We've seen Fousey beat Wasabi.
We've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there's context and whatever, but for the people paying the money, they just need something believable. So in terms of the Deji Fousey fight, before we do move on to the main event,
I don't see a path of victory for Deji, unfortunately.
Right.
Like, I backed Deji against... No, I thought Jake Paul was going to win, but I believed in Deji's heart. And then going against Vinny Hacker, I thought he was just going to wipe the floor with him. I just thought, guys...
You even backed them against Wasabi, I think, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. As I said before, I thought he'd lost the weight. He's obviously been training. He looked good. He did a little bit like what some UFC fighters do when they lose a fight. They'll go away, not do any media. They'll come back and they'll be a monster. They'll be a different version of themselves, in a way. It's very similar to Ronda Rousey, isn't it?
It's funny, but... So one thing I want to give credit to Deji for is the natural talent he does have in terms of all these YouTube boxing lads. When he's got energy and I watch him hit pads and I see things from him, I'm like, that's all right. There's some talent there. I'm not sitting here going he has no talent. That's not what I'm saying. It's whether or not he's dedicated enough. But when I watch him hit pads, there's technique there's ability, there's natural power. I just feel like the mental edge with Fousey is so much stronger. He's just so much more convincing.
So the one path that I do see for Deji is, obviously, when Fousey fought Slim, he was much bigger. He wasn't as lean as he is right now.
He must have lost about 30 pounds since then. Yeah.
Do you think that might have affected his chin? That chin where he was able to just walk forward, because obviously he was much heavier, walk forward against Slim and take those shots? And does Deji hit harder than Slim? Do you know what I mean?
I think Deji will hit harder than Slim, but what I think is the conditioning of Fousey will mean that it would take so much from Deji to get rid of Fousey, because the fitter you are, the harder it is to finish someone. So, and that's just general boxing. And we're talking about Fousey, who I've been watching his social media. Like, last few months, he's been like, I'm just going to go and belt out 10 miles. Like, it's nothing.
Yeah, bro, he's so switched on right now. He's, like, on a different level.
And that was, like, 2 months ago. He was just doing, like, 10Ks like they were nothing.
Bro, so you can't outbox him. Deji can't go in there with the idea that he's going to outbox Fousey. Yeah. He has to go in there with the same mentality as he had against Vinny in the first round. Hell for leather. I'm going to pressure this guy, Shizori, rough him up. Exactly, maintain it.
As the shorter guy with the shorter arms as well. Like, Fousey's going to have an advantage in the reach.
Exactly. He needs to just go in there, not try and outbox him, but just try and really rough him up and catch him with a big shot and make Fousey pay for all those pounds that he's lost.
Do you know what Fousey needs to do? Fast pace.
Yeah.
I'm coming out the gate and I'm going to make Deji's cardio. I'm going to test that to the limit. In that first round, if I'm Fousey, I'm going, I can push the pace on you more than you can do to me. Yeah. So the quicker I go, the quicker you're gonna drown. Basically.
Exactly.